Hey, how's it going? So, my name is Hector here in Marietta, California, and today I want to talk about how the Yamaha R3 changed my life. All right, so for those of you who don't know, the Yamaha R3 is a entry-level sports motorcycle. Of course, to a lot of you guys who are experienced in the motorcycle community, the R3 is just a tiny little moped. It's a 300cc moped. All right, but that was my first bike. I just got it last November. I've been riding it ever since. I've already added 12,000 miles to the bike, which every single mile is actually me, all of them. So one thing it taught me, one way it changed my life, right? It taught me patience. Mind you, the R3 was my first bike. It's not the only one I've actually ridden before. So fairly recently, I actually got to ride on a 1200 RS BMW, and that thing feels like it teleports. So the way I like to describe it to some people is whenever I was on it, it felt like I was falling forward. So as most of you guys probably know, because of my due to my last video, I've actually gone skydiving before. And so basically the feeling with the RS 1200 BMW was it felt like I was falling forward through space. That's how quickly it accelerates, right? So 1 second I was zero, stationary. The next second I look down and I'm going 100 miles per hour. It was pretty quick, right? And this is the only time I've actually tasted the true blood, the true blood of true acceleration when it comes to sports motorcycles. The R3 was the first time I ever tasted the blood of sports motorcycles, and I thought that thing was torquey. When I first got it, brand new, they actually delivered it. I lived on base at the time with my brother David, and I was at San Diego, I think, that day. So oh no, actually I was driving from Yuma to San Diego or Oceanside, where we lived, and they were delivering the bike to the house. So as soon as I got home, brand new, sleek, looking clean. I turned it on, the engine's running, 0 miles, brand new, right? Brand new. And well, my brother, David, will go take it out for a ride. This is your bike, So at the time, I didn't actually have gear yet. I hadn't purchased gear, so he was letting me borrow his. He was letting me borrow his helmet, his gloves, his jacket, all of it. So I took it out. I was nervous. The first bike I actually learned on how to ride on was on a what was it? It was the Rebel, the Honda Rebel, right? Tiny little bike. That's the first bike I learned how to ride on, and I think the top speed of that thing was like 80 miles per hour. So, fun fact, before I actually continue with this story, the Marine Corps, I'm actually enlisted in the Marine Corps, as most of you guys probably know, watching my recent video. The Marine Corps requires every Marine to take a basic rider's course, followed by an advanced rider's course, if they want to actually operate a motorcycle. That's mandatory for every single Marine out there. For every single person out there aspiring to become a Marine, just know that if you do want to become a Marine, you're going to have to take these mandatory courses. Mind you, they're free. The Marine Corps pays for them. The Marine Corps is going to give you a few days off to learn how to properly safely operate a motorcycle. But that is something you're going to have to do, right? So the first time I took the basic rider's course, I actually failed. I was so embarrassed. I was shocked. Excuse me. Everybody in my class, it was like about 8 of us. Everybody passed, with the exception of me. I was the only one that failed. I didn't know how. I didn't know what I did wrong. I did everything, as far as I'm aware, I did everything the way they wanted me to. But I actually failed. So, I pulled the bike out to the driveway. Right, I'm a little nervous. I'm a little shaky. This is the first time I actually operate anything more than a 150cc motorcycle. So I get on it. I'm trying to get used to the controls, trying to get used to the balance, and I mean, it's torquey. Brand new rider. You throw him on a 300 and especially on a sports 300, and it's torquey. It's torquey. So I was accelerating forward, going down the road, and I would attempt to shift, and I don't know. I was too nervous. I guess I was too nervous to turn. I was too stiff. I was like a plank almost, right? So the R3 taught me patience in the sense that I wasn't in a rush to learn, if that makes any sense. I guess when you begin, everybody always there's two sides to the rider community, right? You either learn on a 300 or you learn on a 600, right? There's two sides. Usually the older generation will tell you, make sure you learn how to ride your motorcycle on a 300 or less cc. That's so that you can get used to the controls. You start getting used to the throttle. It's more forgiving, and that's the next point I want to talk about. But it's more forgiving essentially than a 600. You can actually fully grasp the full potential of a 300. You can reach its limitations, but with an R6 with a 600 motorcycle, as far as I've heard from other motorcyclists, you truly never find the limitation of a 600 or more motorcycle. You never truly reach it, right? So eventually, over time, as I was learning how to ride my bike, slowly mastering it, eventually I became extremely confident with it. Now that I still have my 300. Actually, I commute with it. I live in Marietta, California, and I drive all the way down to Camp Pendleton. It takes me about an hour every single day to get down there, right? Now I'm comfortable lane splitting. I'm comfortable hitting the top speed of that motorcycle, which if it's not windy and you're going downhill, it's about 120. It's about 120. I'm comfortable doing all those things, right? But as I mentioned earlier, I actually, about a month ago or so, I actually got the privilege of riding a 1200 RS BMW, right? And that thing taught me that there's more than what meets the eye as far as motorcycles go, right? And I got to tell you, the second I rode on that bike, I was ready to just trade mine in for whatever it was worth. I was ready to trade in the 300 and get myself that BMW. I wanted that BMW bad. I was willing to actually trade my stocks and on all my savings and everything I had in my pocket at that moment to get the RS. But in today's day and age, not today's day and age, but for me in my personal life, I know that it's wise not to get the 1200 RS. So I'm glad I made that choice. I'm still gonna continue to practice my controls on the 300. Master what I can. I'm not a true master with the 300, but there's more to learn still, right? So that brings me to my next point of forgiveness, right? The R3 is forgiving. I have the worst accident I've had on my R3, and yes, I've had a few. No, I haven't had a few accidents. I've had one accident, and this is minor compared to what some people go through on the road, right? So on the 300, I was riding down, headed towards the 15, not getting into the 15, but just going onto a ramp that would have led onto the 15, right? And I came to a stop, slowly coming to a stop, right? I hadn't laid my foot down. I don't know why I was like trying to wait last minute until I was like in a complete stop to actually put my foot down, but I don't know what was going through my head, right? Well, when I came to a complete stop, I tried to put my foot down, to rest it on the ground, keep myself upright. My foot wasn't coming down. My shoelace was wrapped around the shifter, and I couldn't get my foot off. So I was there trying to balance myself for about a good solid 6 seconds, probably 6 seconds. I was trying to balance myself. I couldn't get that shoelace off. Eventually, I collapsed to my left. And mind you, it was nighttime. It was around what time? About 8 p.m., 9 p.m. It was already dark. This was still probably wintertime. So in California, in the wintertime, 8 p.m., 9 p.m. is already dark out, right? And I just collapsed, and all these cars were in front of me, and all these cars were behind me. I wasn't moving. This was the most pathetic motorcycle crash probably in the history of motorcycles. I just collapsed to my left. I didn't. And even still, when I was on the ground, it took me like a solid few seconds to get up and recover. And at that point, honestly, I just wanted to get out of there. So I got up, got on my motorcycle, and just drove off and shook it off like nothing happened, But that's the worst I've ever done. Aside from that, the R3 really is forgiving. You could do a lot, and you can mess up a lot on that bike, and chances are you're not gonna kill yourself. You could go full throttle, right? You could go full throttle, just full throttle, don't release the clutch, and then you're reaching those higher PMs and just let go of your clutch, and your front tire might raise up probably like 4 inches, 4 to 8 inches off the ground, but you're not gonna do a full on wheelie, and you're not gonna go flying through space and time with that. It's really forgiving. So same thing with the brakes, same thing with the top speed, same thing with the turns. It's really light also, so it's really nimble. That's one thing you'll notice about the 300. The second time I rode that 1200 RS, I was going through a Walmart parking lot, and I don't know what I had done that caused this to happen, but if it wasn't for my index finger, barely touching the clutch, that motorcycle would have flown out of my grasp, flown out of my seat into a crowd of people, had I not had my finger ever so gently resting on the clutch. And that's because I hadn't truly mastered the throttle of the 1200 RS as of yet. Obviously, I was still used to my R3. So the first time I rode the 1200, it felt really comfortable. I was actually shocked to not notice that much of a significant. I mean, it was significantly different, yes, but my thought process was, as long as I have control, as long as I have patience with the throttle, as long as I'm responsible with the throttle, everything should be fine, right? So that was the case. I guess this one event, I decided to become a little bit more comfortable with the throttle. So I gave a little bit of throttle, let go of the clutch a little bit faster than normal, just a little bit faster than how I was treating that bike, and it flew out of my hands. So the R3 is really, really forgiving. Next, you have the next point I want to talk about is the limitations, right? So as I mentioned earlier, you're never going to truly, as far as most motorcyclists tell me, you're never going to truly reach the full capability of a 600, of a 1200. You're never going to truly hit those you're never going to truly experience what your bike is capable of. Where would you possibly do that besides the track? You could probably do that on the I-5. You could probably do that on the I-15. Of course, it's highly illegal, and you're probably going to get arrested and probably get a felony for going 200 miles per hour, 180 miles per hour down the freeway, right? But even still, I'm very confident those bikes can still probably squeeze a little bit more out of it. So you will, on a 300, you will reach the limitation. You will be at the full speed, full throttle, and you could go full throttle on an R3 with no problem. You could actually go full throttle, and I guess it's a little bit different. Being able to actually witness that, there's some sort of joy or some not joy, but there's something that's behind knowing that you are comfortable reaching the max capabilities of the machine you have between your legs. There's something, you feel more in control. Basically, you feel like you truly understand that machine's capabilities. You truly understand what that machine is worth, and I think it just makes you more experienced. Right. Lastly, I want to talk about humility. There's a particular sergeant that works downstairs from the shop I work at, Sergeant Tran, right? And every single day whenever I see her, I walk by her front hatch. It's like a gate, so you could see through it. I'm walking down to go to the restroom, and she's like, "When are you gonna sell your R3?" She's always hitting me. She's like, "Oh, I saw you brought your moped today." And just start laughing and basically just roasting me the entire time, right? Just roasting me for having a 300. And originally, when I would receive this roast, because she has a 600 motorcycle, so she's always like, "Well, I have a 600. I could smoke your ass any day." Initially, I wanted to get a 600. I was like, you know what? I'm tired of being the laughing stock of everybody around here. There's a few motorcycle riders, by the way, in my shop. So I was tired of being the crack of every joke. So I was like, you know what? I'm going to go get a 600. So I started researching, going on Facebook, looking at a 600. But for what? I was, the mileage I get on my R3? It's like 60 miles per gallon on my R3. It does it does its job. I enjoy riding down the freeway. I enjoy listening to my Cena, listening to my favorite music. I enjoy just being on a motorcycle, right? And one day eventually I will absolutely get a 600, a 1200. Absolutely I will. But there for pride, I don't really, I think it's dangerous, right? I think it's dangerous when individuals out of pride will go out of their way to get a 600 or a 1200 without having at least a year of experience under their belts with a motorcycle. I think it's just dangerous, right? So I decided to be to have a little bit of humility, right? And every single day to this day, just yesterday, I still get made fun of for having my 300 R3, but that's all right. That's all right. I'm safe. I'm still out there looking out for motorcycles whenever I'm in my car. And yeah, so that's my experience with the Yamaha R3. All right, that's my experience with the Yamaha R3. That's my experience with the BMW 1200 RS. So I guess in that sense, the R3 changed my life by showing me patience, by being forgiving and not killing me, by allowing me to reach its limitations, by gaining some experience, and by having some humility. So that concludes my talk for today. Thank you for listening. You're watching Norcore TV.